All right, welcome back to the GO4CEO channel. This is John the Bomb, and today's guest is someone who's cutting through all the noise in the world of AI. You know what that is, artificial intelligence. While most people are chasing shiny AI tools, Jake Holmes, my guest today, the AI strategist behind Grow Fast, is helping business owners find what actually works. With a background as a software engineer and founder, Jake's built real AI solutions from the ground up, not just theories or hype, using his framework called Impact Framework. He helps leaders identify high return on investment opportunities to streamline operations, cut costs, and increase profits. So you're in for a doozy today. Welcome to the show, Jake. How are you?
Thank you very much for having me on. It's great to join you from this side of the channel.
Yeah, I mean you're in bloody old England, right? That's
Please don't do
love it. So,
that.
well, hey, we're excited. We've had people from Ireland and Australia and England now, and everywhere around the world, and excited obviously to do. This is a subject that's hot right now. It's really impacting the world. But there's a lot of noise. In fact, my own little podcast, we're using little tools like Opus Stop Clips and these other things to generate different content. But it's interesting, and so. I guess, you seem like you're probably of the younger generation, so you're a young lad, but what is it that, started this idea? We always like to start with the framework of, hey, where did this ideation come from? Were you with some buddies? Did you go to school and start in this framework? We've got the engineering background. What is the start of Grow Fast and how did that, come about?
Earlier this year, I left a AI startup that I founded. As part when I was leaving that business, I got invited on a boat trip with a kind of a serial entrepreneur who owns various different businesses. And on the boat trip, we were talking about how he was starting to explore AI in his business. And he was like, there's just so many tools, there's so many options on the market that A, it's really hard for us to choose and know where it's going to add value into our business. And B, it's going to cost us a lot of money to implement it. So if we do and if we pick one, we want to make sure the one that we pick or the thing that we develop or the thing that we're going to build into our product is going to add value for our customers. And then from that conversation, kind of ideas sparked with this gentleman, and we got to a point where he kind of suggested that I came and helped his business out with their AI kind of strategy and implementation and figuring out where it is really going to add value to his business. And then off the back of that, he recommended me to other entrepreneurs after he saw quite a significant growth in his business. And now we're quite an exclusive little agency where we only work with 6 businesses at any one time. So we're very kind of exclusive in that remit. And the pure reason why we do that is just so that we can give all of our customers the attention that they need, require, and it's a hard process implementing AI and figuring out where it's going to add value, especially in software companies. So making sure that we do that properly requires time, effort, and real impact into the business.
Neat. So what I'm picking up on is, this fractional world over the last 10 years. I've heard, and had on the channel CMO fractionals, CFO fractionals, CTO, Chief Technology Officers. It sounds like you've created a little industry of yourself for fractional CAIO.
Kind of, yeah. It's like
Artificial.
we kind of position ourselves as like the full technical partner for a business. And then
Mhm.
if we require more reasons, then we think about the business and what's going to add the most value to them. Like if they need a developer in-house or an offshore developer to reduce costs, then we bring people in. But we've got absolutely no affiliates or any commission schemes. So anyone that we bring into the business, we do because it's the right thing to do for that business. And I think there's far too many people in the world that want to make a fast buck, and we're not in that industry to make referral money or commission credits or anything like that. So we really want to do what's best for the business that we help, and we want to make sure that they grow their profit per person at least, to make sure that their investment is worthwhile.
Okay. So, look, in my chapter 2 of the book, The 4A Formula, I talk about alignment, right? And it sounds like this gentleman was someone that you had a relationship with. You go out on a boat, you start talking ideas, frameworks, thoughts, strategies, and all of a sudden, boom, grow fast, becomes an idea. You start to put this framework together. So, obviously it was just a few short months ago, but this entrepreneurial journey, that first beginning part, having a committed person that wants to give you a chance. What did that feel like? What was the things that you did to look at his business strategically and start to see how you could form a business within his business?
So I think it the more businesses you start and the more experience you have in getting your first customer, the easier it gets. And luckily for me, this wasn't my first time in getting the first customer again. So it actually came quite easily because I had experience in doing it before. And I think serial entrepreneurs and people that are on their second, third time in running a business um, find it easier and easier and easier to do. So it's very obvious to me where we add value into his business and taking away the thought and the kind of the things that are in his brain that don't necessarily need to be there, but he could just reel off ideas. I work with his staff, so everyone's aligned across the board. And we use our framework that we've developed, having started and launched many other different businesses in different sectors that helps us help other businesses to put AI and technology in the right position in their business. So that's our impact framework, which kind of works in two parts. So first we do the inventory, we call it. That's kind of where we go through all of the tasks that people do in business. And normally we start with like the top five biggest pain points. So we look at the top five biggest pain points, we list them out kind of step by step. And often, there's clarity in doing this as well, where one person probably doesn't talk to the other person that finishes off the end of the process. So there's a lot of duplicated things in a lot of business processes that people overlook. So just getting that written down and put on paper and getting clarity across everyone, even the senior leaders in the business, is really, really crucial. And even just doing that exercise, you find quite good efficiency gains just by cutting some people out where they don't need to be. And it makes us really pinpoint and highlight where AI can add value and where that person adds value in that process as well. And then we get on to measure. So we measure how much that process costs the business, how much time each person spends on that process, how many hours they spend, and then how many kind of what's their price per hour, and then kind of you get a general cost from there, and then how often does it happen per week, per month, etc. And that helps us highlight real kind of cost implications to the business if they're not doing anything about it, because often business owners just accept processes for process sake and they never look deeper or see how much it's costing them or what they can do better, or if this person wasn't filling out this spreadsheet, what could they be doing. So we kind of position this into like quite an obvious way in which we tackle each process, how much it's going to cost, things like that. And then we design the solution. So P is for plan. We design the solution to fix the process. And often this comes in like very small parts initially, where we keep the human value in the process, because often, if a recruiter is speaking to someone that they're recruiting a role for, that relationship is really important in that process. But the stuff that goes on behind the scenes isn't so important. So that stuff you can start to automate. So we create a plan that keeps the human value in the process, but also the stuff that neither person involved really cares about doing, we can start to add AI or process optimization or whatever that might look like into the process. And then we make it real. We activate the process. So we put these new tools in place, we get the people using them, and then we start to measure kind of the implication in doing it in the new way. It's not just like no software is kind of, here's your new thing, go away and use it, and maybe we'll see a result. So you have to be quite intentional with how you put these things into people's workload, because what we don't want them to do is just reject them and say, no, I'm not going to use this. I want to do it the way that I've always done it for the past 10 years or whatever. We try to make it really easy for them to adopt it. And often if you take away some of the pain points, they adopt it a bit faster. We then work on culture. So this is kind of a separate point from the first three pieces. We work on the culture. So how can we as an agency, as an AI agency, teach the people within the business to kind of notice where AI might help in their processes, because nobody knows what they get up to in their day quite like they do. So if we can empower them to kind of think about things a bit differently or educate them on what's possible, then they start to recognize what they can actually do better. And that's really important because it kind of gives them the power and the autonomy and kind of decision making potential to be able to, think about things a bit differently and bring new ideas and um, have them acted on as well. And then the last phase to that is track. So the process that we did fix and put in place, it's really important that you track that the benefits are what we kind of outlined and said that that's what they were going to be, because it's not a set and forget. Like I said earlier, you have to measure these things throughout their life cycle. In 2 months, is it still the right thing for the business, or can we take it to the next level, or did we try something and it didn't work for whatever reason, and this was the reason why? And by tracking it, it becomes obvious where the pitfalls in the process or the implementation or the planning might have been, or if the person's just not adopting it, because then you can tell quite easily. So that's our framework, kind of in a nutshell. Um, I think it's something really easy to follow and something that any business can get started on, no matter what size or what industry they're in. Everyone can kind of think about what they do in a day and just write out one process that involves a partner or an employee, or what that might look like, just to get some sort of clarity.
I'm interested in that last thought, right? The way that you said it makes it really, inviting, right, into a business. Hey, take some step in what you do daily, sales, marketing, operations, fulfillment, supply chain, whatever it may be, so many different facets and different industries, but you just simplified it there. So I hope that you caught that Go4CEO community. Take one area and use AI and implement that so that it could simplify your life in that process, right? So, all right, well, we like to always still talk about the start of the business, right? So you get this one client, you've had this framework in mind, and shared, hey, this is what I think we could do for you. Is this still something that you yourself is just part of Grow Fast, or are you also having vendors, or did you already line up the types of tools that would help you pretty quickly to start this business?
So we're quite lucky in the way that we operate, and we operate on a low volume quite intentionally, so that we can move with new tools and new ways of working relatively quickly. So we do have, as part of like the plan phase when we work with a business, kind of that phase is also, how much is this going to cost if we were to get an outsourcer in, or if we were to use a new tool, how much would that cost the business, so that we can make sure the reward is worthwhile and the ROI is there most importantly, right? So yeah, I think that kind of answers some of the question. And iterating with software now has never been easier. There's tools like Cursor and Claude Code, and for process optimization, there's things like Na10 and Make.com, and all of these other things that can make your business really, really efficient. Especially ours, where we hand off most of the writing of code to Claude Code, and we just give it PRDs, so product requirement documents. We give it PRDs, and then it goes away and writes the code, and I just check it over. So we live in a world now where AI is really, powerful, and it can make a two-person company really quite lethal.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting, right? I was thinking, so, in a traditional side, I take it, I'll just give you a kind of a metaphor here. So, a doctor, there's pharmaceuticals, 1,000 drugs that they could prescribe. And typically, these pharmaceutical companies, the traditional way was that the individual would be a sales rep. They'd go and knock on the door and say, "Hey, Mr. Doctor or Mrs. Doctor, here's a pill that could fix, rheumatoid arthritis or this, whatever." I'm thinking there's so many new AI tools. How are you, as the AI agency, platforming these things and saying to yourself, okay, hey, here's HeyGen that just came out. They could do video, right? Or blah blah blah, this type of thing. Is there a rep that's calling you? Like, what's the dynamic of people getting to you so that you can get to your client?
because the space changes very quickly, we have a weekly blog on our website that goes through the latest developments and what's happened in the previous week. So we're always researching and doing development in what's coming out, what's hitting the market, what startups are launching, really innovative tools that perhaps aren't ready yet, but in a month's time we can anticipate them being, kind of ready to go to market and to use in our clients. So we're always doing a lot of kind of deep research into these tools and trying to figure out, well, what the best tool is, because there's always 10 different tools for the one thing that you actually need to solve. So getting deep on what the customer requirements are as well is also quite important, and also where the startup or the AI company or the technology company is going, because if one quite established business has been around for a long time, but they're a big corporate and they move really slowly and new disruptors enter the market, you have to take a bet on one of the two. And I think the one that can, change and develop their product in a way that's going to outrank the stagnant enterprise, say, is going to be quite a lethal force in the market, especially with AI. And these tools that I'm mentioning that you can create software from relatively quickly and easily. So yeah, we're constantly doing research, and there is just such an overwhelming amount of tools on the market at the moment. And I'm sure some of the listeners can think about, like if you were to use Opus Clip, like what are the alternatives? There's probably like 15 now. Are one of them better, or just Opus good at marketing? Like what's the answer? And the answer to that really lies in what your business is trying to achieve from it. Like what content are you producing? What outputs do you need? Is Opus's rankings actually good for you, or is there a disruptor in the market that perhaps doesn't have the marketing budget as Opus, but is doing a much better job, and will they surpass where Opus is at the minute? So, there's a lot of research and thought that goes into what products that we recommend and put in place in a business. But ultimately, once you adopt one product in your business and you get used to that change, often swapping that out for the next latest thing is easier. So it's just taking the first jump.
All
So
right. Sorry to interrupt you there, but I thought you were going in a different way. I thought, I guess, and maybe it's a newer mindset with a newer generation. Human nature is to find something you like and just stick with it, right? If it ain't broke, don't break it, as type of mentality. But you just stated a pretty clear point that, you may have a tool like Opus that we happen to be using at Code4CEO. But could there be something else? And it's interesting because as an older dog, I guess, in the game, I'm comfortable with it. It does what I want it to do. I hadn't even thought, could there be something that could surpass it, could be better, could give me better, captions or what have you. So it's interesting to think that way. And I guess your agency really is the innovator of that type of scenario, right? Where you're always looking for how could we break this, get it better, break it, get it better. Does that make sense?
exactly that, exactly that. So we live in a world now where technology evolves so quickly that a new product could hit the market and then surpass Opus, or whatever that might look like for that function. So I think just having your mind open and being open to change is quite one. We only work with companies that where the leadership team are quite open to change, because otherwise it makes it quite a painful task to put something in place when people don't want to change. It just doesn't work. So if you've got the mindset there that you're open to change and just seeing what's possible, even if you just try it out and see if it works, then I think you've got a mindset that's going to help you grow your business quite substantially with the new technology that's coming out, because Salesforce and HubSpot aren't going to control the market forever. So using an innovative kind of product that is a competitor to them might be a good option for you. Like I don't know, but having that mindset is quite important.
I love it. So, well, look, let's dive into how you make money, right? You're less than a year old in the business. We're excited because we love having startups. We love having, mature businesses and seasoned, maybe exiting businesses we've had on the Go4CEO channel. So at this point, how did you develop your revenue cycle? Like, and prompting the invoicing side, like what are you doing? Is it a monthly subscription that you abide by? Do you have some sort of project calculations that you make. We'd love to hear about how you're billing your clients and making revenue.
To be honest, this probably isn't the best advice or way of doing it, but I'm okay with that because we're small volume, right? So we very much look at what's best for the business that we're going to be helping. We like to help businesses on a longer term, so 6 months plus, because otherwise, the things that we find or try to put in place just don't have the impact in a shorter time frame. So that's something that we kind of set out from the offset. Um, we can work on a project basis. We like to kind of work on a retainer and work alongside the founder of the startup that we're helping or the owner of the business that we're helping, because then we feel like we can really make a difference in that business. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if I can make the business owner a lot more money from using tools or becoming more efficient, then ultimately that's good for me and my business, because they're just going to have more cash flow to put into making them even better. And we help each other get up the ladder. So I think it's quite a good relationship that we have with our customers, and the small volume lets us be quite flexible with how we bill and charge people.
So is it based on our, just so we understand a little bit better, is it based on an hourly? Is it based on just a set number on a monthly basis that you contract for 6 months? Or is it based on revenue share and increase in revenue?
It used to be hourly, and now we've gone to like a kind of a role-based structure, where we have certain deliverables within the business that we want to achieve in this time period. So then we charge this amount per month for that customer, for example. And obviously, the more kind of that we have to do, the more we then charge for it. But ultimately, the end goal is that our improvements and our gains cover the cost of us plus some. So it makes it a no-brainer really for the client.
Okay, interesting. And has the adaptive side of that, you challenged all of us a few minutes ago to be of a mindset of change and growth. What's been your thoughts about how you've been able to, increase revenue yourself for your own business, or see different ways to stay, consistent, and then just have maybe incremental growth of revenue?
So when we started out, we often done like AI audits, looking at businesses and finding out where they can add value. We still do those, but we do a lower volume of those at the moment. And we started off being kind of like an AI advisor to the business, providing kind of coaching, development, and that kind of pivoted into a bit more of kind of like a technology partner, dealing with some of the code, the developers, like a lot more responsibility within the business. So we've been through a couple of iterations of ways of working with our clients. But I really quite like the oversubscribed model by Daniel Priestley, and we try to follow that quite comprehensively, which I think quite works quite well for our small business. So we often put on like free events and webinars and in-person meetups, and we're very much kind of we do event-driven sales kind of. So we like to put out a lot of value into the world that people can use themselves on their own business, and then if they need more help and we have a space available, then we will help them try to grow their business.
Okay, so you've got a lot of maybe freemium conversion type models out there.
Um, I mean, anyone can come to my webinars, yeah. But they happen often like once a month, so not very often. But we try to provide enough value in there that people can take what has gone on in the webinar and do it themselves. And then if they really want help, then they can get in touch. But we've actually got a webinar coming up at the start of November, all about generative engine optimization for websites, which is quite a new thing that's come out recently. But if you remember the early days of SEO, if you optimize your website for Google, then you're ranked number one almost instantly. I
Yep.
think that's where GEO is going. If you can rank always highly in ChatGPT and get cited and in Google's AI overview, I think you're going to be in a really good place in the future, especially because OpenAI launched their new browser Atlas. So I think the market there is kind of ever evolving, and things are changing, but there's a real early mover advantage in that space for sure.
So, okay, I'm gonna have you nerd out on me for a little bit, because you lost me at that last 30 seconds. So, I always traditionally thought, hey, I go to Google, I look up something, and my thought of SEO was, hey, maybe that website had enough keywords compared to what I was searching, and then yeah, it placed it at the top so that I could choose that over the website that had, two keywords compared to 20 or whatever, SEO site, right? So you're saying that now, let's say like Google has its own, I think it's Gemini, um, so it's converted it from the search component to now having the AI be the search component, or I guess I lost you on that.
Yeah, so there's some natural language processing that goes on. I think Google now takes the first 18 website links that comes up. How AI interprets those websites is it likes to chunk the content. So like if you've got a paragraph in your website or something like that, it'll chunk like 1 to 300 words and then use that as context throughout the website. So if you search for something and then in the first 18 links something comes up that answers your question in that chunk, then it will present it to you in Google's AI overview. And what's quite outstanding about this actually is that users that come from AI, like ChatGPT or whatever, are so pre-qualified that they spend 4.5 times more on the product, or they're 4.5 times more likely to convert. Actually, that's correct. Yeah, 4.5 more times likely to convert on your page because they're already pre-qualified. So ChatGPT has done all of the vetting for you. So once they recommend your business as the best solution for their problem, why would they search anywhere else? It's already been through a source that's vetted them. So I think that's quite a amazing stat, really. 4.5 times more likely to convert. I think it was fresh research out of Princeton, but I can provide you the link.
No, yeah, that's incredible. So what you said is, as a searcher of something, if chat now or some sort of AI is suggesting it, the human being is converting that into, hey, this is the one I need to use. They're almost stopping their research at that point. Is that what I just heard?
Exactly right. So if you have a chat with ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Perplexity or whatever, you often have a chat that leads up to it citing a result, which could be your business. It's how you get cited first before your competitor. And at the minute, that's quite easy to do because nobody else is really looking at it too much. So if you can make sure that you get cited first, I think there'll be a big uptick in sales.
Wow. All right. You're blowing my mind. I don't know where to go with that, but that is pretty cool and interesting from a perspective of someone that, like myself, I relate to you, a bit of a serial entrepreneur, also a commercial banker, wrote a book, many different things. And sometimes you kind of, start to figure out like, all right, where do I go next and how do I do things? So, all right. Well,
If
look,
you if you want to know where to come next, you can come to my webinar.
there you go. There you go. And we'll have that in the link. We'll put that out there for everybody to go for SEO community. Take a look at this. Jake is one of those guys that's revolutionizing this industry and making a difference. So, all right. So, you've got the webinar style to attract. You've got obviously your current clientele. Word of mouth is probably still so impactful for you, and because you like to go slow and have the right type of client, right? Because you're also judging clients. Can you give us a little bit of that, like? Has there been clients that you said, hey, no, we appreciate the inquiry, but we're not going to go this route, and maybe we recommend someone else that's a different agency. What has that been like for you to go slow and pick the right clients?
I think as you do business more and more, you figure out that that's a really important part of business because your clients can make or break your life sometimes, they have a real steer on it. So making sure that I think for me more than anything is that I get on really well with my clients and they're good people to me, I'm good people to them, and we get on, we've got that bond. There's a level of trust there. And also making sure that they're in the right space to start adopting this. The funds are there, they've got the money to invest in it, the leadership are ready for a bit of change, they're open to it. And ultimately, really, for me, like it all comes back down to, do we get on as individuals? Because if we do, that makes the relationship a lot easier. And then the rest are just kind of like formalities. Every business is completely different, whether you're in the same sector as one of my existing clients or in a completely different sector, you do everything completely differently anyway. So the processes will be different regardless of if it's the same or different sectors. So we try and keep all of our clients in different sectors so that we don't help competing businesses, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Um, because at least, well, I guess the worst thing we can do is help a competitor get better and compete the two off together. I don't think that's a constructive relationship. So we try to be quite respectful of our clients as well.
So in that situation, let's say a competitor does reach out to you, what's your best strategy in that point? Is it to guide them to maybe another AI agency so that there's no conflict of interest in your opinion, or?
Yeah, I mean, rightly or wrongly, I'd probably speak to my customer first and just tell them that these people have got in touch and then chat with them about it and see what they thought. Because ultimately, my interest is with my current customers, and I think their happiness and their result and their bond is worth more than anything really. So I'd first off take it to them, but I probably wouldn't work with a competitor, no.
Interesting. All right. Well, look, I mean, you're not selling obviously a burger, right? Where everybody could eat it.
Exactly.
You're
Yeah.
saying something very unique, very strategic, and you've decided as a company that maybe it's not you're not the iPhone, right? Where you want everybody to have an iPhone. You're this specific agency that helped maybe someone in this industry, and now you want to take that to the next level. So it's an interesting business model. I guess there is some limitation to that, right? But so as an entrepreneur, as a founder, when you've committed to this scenario, what's your thought then? Are you just looking to grow by different industries? Is that the concept of growth, right? When you think about grow fast and growing?
As a business, we're limited by the self in with our caps internally. But the way that I see this growing is actually investing in existing businesses that we're helping and taking a shareholding there for the work that we do, and then growing with the business that we help. So, you know, my ideal situation is in 5 years, if I've got part ownership of five different companies, then that's my kind of 5 year goal. And if it's any more than that, fantastic. So we do some work with some mergers and acquisition specialists to help buyers grow businesses that they've bought. So that's kind of our odd way of growth. But I think for us, it's quite important to have a lot of fingers in different businesses that are going on so that we can find solutions that work for all of them, as it were, and also have a little bit of a slice of the pie as well.
Okay, so you brought up a different topic, right? Something that maybe people aren't even thinking. So, rev share, MRR, monthly rate, recurring revenue. These are concepts that people have thought, right? But you're saying, hey, I want to take my business at a sort of exclusivity, but then that exclusivity gives me the right to say, hey, there's equity opportunity here for the long term. And if I stay loyal to this one client and the client stays loyal to me, and we take it to 10x, there's a piece of the pie there. So that's a different type of model. Can you go a little bit deeper? I guess, do your contracts up front, state that? Is there a 6-month check-in that says, hey, at this point, we've been able to develop this, and now we're looking over the next 6 to 12 months now become an equity partner? What does that transition look like?
So we do have a 6 month kind of like probation. It's not really a probation, but I think going from having a couple of meetings with a business to actually working with them, you kind of uncover who they are as a business, what their ambitions are, where they want to go. And then at kind of 6 months, we have a bit of a decision point whether we want to get involved further or not, or if that's the right thing for us or for them, or where we go from there. But we always have the discussions first in the initial chats as well. But it very much kind of depends on the business and the person as well. We are involved in a couple of acquisitions that are meant to be coming up. So as a technical partner to a buyer of a business, I think that's quite solidified in there from the start, which is quite nice.
Interesting. So, I've got some practice in the M&A space, being a commercial lender and working with the M&A world a lot. So you're talking about, even from what you just shared, you're basically a bolt-on to the strategic acquisition, right?
Exactly
Um,
that. Yeah.
or that partner, right, going in. So go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. So we're kind of their technical partner or AI partner or however you want to frame it. We really look at the business and try to figure out what their technical capabilities are if they were to adopt all of the AI tools in the world and get, more efficient than they are already. Um, I think it's quite a power play because when a business is being taken over, they obviously go through a lot of change anyway. So a bit more onto that whilst they're going through this changing process actually isn't the end of the world because the people that are resistant to change will ultimately end up probably leaving themselves. So if we can do it all at once, it makes the process a bit easier than fragmenting it.
Okay. Well, we love to end our interviews with CEO. So it's client experience, engagement, and then operational excellence. So when you think about, the framework that you've created, the grow fast mentality, but yet the personalization, the exclusivity model that you have, the equity share that you've kind of developed, the client experience at this point, and it'll be ever developing, but what's your thought about a value proposition if you could share to the people that would be watching that Grow Fast gives a client, that client experience, what does that look like? Oh, and it's say like 60 to 90-second feedback.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the client experience is number one. Whatever we do is about the client, We work on a low scale, so all of our clients have my phone number. They can call me anytime, day or night, WhatsApp me, they often do. So we give that level of experience that other agencies just can't do because they work on a larger scale, larger volume. And we recognize that they do that. So I think, what makes us is quite different is that we provide that extra level of support and are there for our clients, whatever questions they might have if they're struggling with even like setting up a domain or something like that, for example, we're just a phone call away, and we're there to help. So they use us, which gives me purpose. So, it's something that I'm very happy that we do and we provide so much care over our clients.
I love it. There is a very much a uniqueness and a really great aspect of the way that you've set this up. So engagement is another thing, right? Obviously, being a gentleman that works with a lot of tools, I always say, hey, how do you get back to human side things, right? So the engagement part is we like to hear from founders and CEOs of companies. What are you doing with your clients? Do you do client retreats? Do you work with certain vendors that you've built relationships with as you grow your employees, or maybe you stay solopreneurish type style. Who are you engaging with so that they know you, Jake, right, the owner, and how to interact with you from the human point of view?
We visit all of our clients quite regularly. So we have quite frequent catch ups. So we often go out to lunch with them or spend a day in their office with their employees and, finding things out that you won't be able to see over a screen. So, we get deep and we really involve ourselves in the business that we're trying to help grow. And again, the size allows us to do that on quite a regular basis.
Okay, I love it. I love it. So last one's operational excellence, right? Ultimately, it seems like, you had this mind of like, hey, I could implement something with true operational excellence. You have all the tools, you're always growing, you're always researching, you're always developing. You do these webinars, right, on a monthly basis. So you have that information coming in all the time. What would you say is your operational excellence? What are three of the top tools that you use to make sure that Grow Fast is operationally sound?
Because we do a lot of programming internally to prove value and to experiment with things. I'd say Claude Code is up there for us because it allows us to iterate and come up with MVPs very quickly. Um, I'm a quite a big fan of Opus Clip as well. I used to do a fair few TikTok videos. I do less now because my time is eaten up a little bit more. Um, and the third tool, that's a tricky one because I'm going to give a fake answer because I do like Claude chatbot over ChatGPT. I use it all the time. We have specialist projects set up for like SEO and LinkedIn things and our brand voice and all these different things that we can create there. So Claude Code, Claude, and Opus Clip. So, we don't do much internally with some tools.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I mean, and obviously each business has its uniqueness, right? From CRMs that they're using to, ways that they're communicating, right?
Mm.
Chat bots and email and does a regular phone call even happen in your business, right? So those are things. But I love that you talked about even WhatsApp, right? That your clients have the ability to connect with you through that. You're always diligent to check it, because there's so many different messaging platforms. You got to choose sometimes one or two, so that you could stay focused on it. So awesome. Well, hey, we really appreciate you coming on, Jake. The beauty of this world is that we could probably have you on, once a month almost, because it's changing so fast. But what's some of the best ways that if they are interested, not only the webinar that you talked about in November that we'll promote ourselves as well, if you could give a website address where they could sign up and be a part of that. But what's other ways that they could get a hold of you on LinkedIn or some other ways that you feel is the best?
Yeah, the best way to get hold of me is on LinkedIn. It's Jake Holmes, or on my website, grow-fast.co.uk. And you can find us there and see what we get up to.
Awesome, awesome. Well, hey, Go4CEO community, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, right? And go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Check out my book. It's on Amazon. It's the 4A formula: untangle any challenge and think like a CEO. Jake, a CEO here, is a perfect example, right? He gave you some tools, some ways to unthink, things so that you can have a process, a system, a strategy to grow within there. And there was a special nugget that he gave that he talked about specifically: take one piece of what you do today in your daily business and your work and strike a way to make AI improve that. So, did I say that correctly? And do you want to share the framework one more time with us?
You did. It was the impact framework.
Awesome, awesome.
And
And
yeah.
steps behind it.
I is inventory, M is measure, P is plan, A is act or activate, C is culture, T is track. So that's the impact framework, and it's on our website if you want to read a bit more about it as well.
Awesome, guys. Well, hey, thank you so much, Jay, for being on the Go4CEO channel. We look forward to, we might want to have you on, every 6 months. We try to bring people on at between 6 and 18 months, but we might rethink that with your approach in this industry. It's changing so fast. We might have to have you on. You might be a consistent guest, my friend. So, so thank you so much for coming on.
Nice. Thank you for having me on, John.